Hi, this is Brian Dagenhart with your results from the objective assessment of your baseline skills in localizing and determining the asymmetry of lumbar and pelvic landmarks. Positional asymmetry testing is a common form of examination in osteopathic manipulative medicine. The results from the objective assessments help you to understand the accuracy of your hands, and it provides baseline data that you can then compare to future assessments to see how you are progressing in learning and refining your skills. The format of the results that you will see now will be used throughout your 2 years of objective assessments for positional asymmetry testing. This plot is an easy way to visualize your and the entire class's baseline performance. On the y-axis is the percent correct, and on the x-axis indicates the date of the examination. There were two anatomical regions assessed during the exam. For one region, you evaluated the transverse processes for the lumbar spine and the sagittal plane, and your scores are illustrated with the yellow bars. For the other portion of the assessment, where you evaluated the anterior and posterior superior iliac spines of the pelvis and the coronal plane, these results are indicated with the orange bars. The length of the bars indicate the number of students who achieved that number of correct answers. The longer the bar, the more students received that score. The black line indicates the median scores for the class. You also see red and purple circles, and they indicate your specific performance for each portion of the test. The questions set at zero symmetry are scored as extra credit, since this setting can be challenging to consistently identify as a novice. The dotted blue line is the calibration standard or goal that we have set at the A.T. Still Research Institute as an indicator that the examiner has demonstrated adequate competency for using this class of tests in the clinical setting. Here is an example of what type of feedback you will receive from the palpation calibration program during the first 2 years of your training. Along the x-axis, you will see an example of the various assessments that you will take. The red line demonstrates the progression of the student's performance with the lumbar models, and the purple line indicates the progression of performance with the pelvis models. All of us, students and faculty alike, would expect to see progressive improvement in the skills with practice over time, indicating successful preparation for clinical practice. You will also receive different data tables that will help you gain more insight into your skills or level of calibration. This table evaluates how you performed based on the direction of asymmetry. In the shaded portion of the table, the first column looks at the type of model, whether it was a lumbar or pelvic model. The second column looks at the individual landmarks, the transverse processes for the lumbar model, and for the pelvis model, the anterior superior iliac spine or the posterior superior iliac spine. The next column looks at the direction of asymmetry. A positive indicator means for the lumbar model that the right transverse process was anterior compared to the left. For the pelvis model, it means that the landmark on the right was superior compared to the left. A zero indicator means that the position of the landmarks were symmetrical. And a negative sign means that the lumbar spine on the right transverse process was posterior compared to the left. For the pelvis models, the right landmark was inferior compared to the left. Now going to the white portion of the table. The first column looks at the number of questions for each asymmetry. The third column indicates at the number of percent correct that you performed as an individual. In the column to the right, this demonstrates how the class performed at each particular direction of asymmetry. In future exams, you will then have the remainder of the columns filled, indicating your performance for those particular tests. This table helps you to understand your hand sensitivities for the lumbar model based on the percent correct in relation to the degree of asymmetry present for each question. Ideally, as you progress through your training, you will see more accurate and sensitive outcomes as evidenced by being more correct at smaller degrees of asymmetry over time. This slide has the same layout as the previous slide, but is for the anterior superior iliac spine, and this slide for the posterior superior iliac spine. Learning psychomotor skills, or the use of hands to diagnose and treat patients, requires practice outside of scheduled lab hours. Scheduled lab sessions in the curriculum provide an introduction to the skills needed to be learned. Practice is required to advance those skills over time. Practice sessions for working on each other and with calibrated models are generally weekly opportunities to facilitate your learning. If you have any questions about your data, you can contact me via email. This is my address.